Hi, this is Tony Robbins. Welcome to Get the Edge, a 7-day program to transform your life, your body, your emotions, your relationships, your finances, the whole enchilada. And I'm here to deliver for you. And in the next few days, you and I are going to become good friends, and it's my privilege to become your coach. I thank you for that opportunity. I want to start out right up front by telling you that you and I must be kindred souls, because you're listening to tapes just like I did starting way back at 17. I've never stopped doing it. I've never stopped reading. I've never stopped learning, because I'm always looking for the edge, and you must be too. Not the edge over other people. I'm talking about the life advantage, the advantage that allows you to see life and feel life from the peak, where you experience that joy and that passion, that juice for living, where your body feels that kind of energy, where you wake up in the morning, you can't wait to jump out of bed, and you don't want to go to bed at night, because your life has so much that you enjoy. I want you to experience more of that. I'm sure you have some of that, or if you don't feel it right now, I can promise you you will. And I can make that promise not through hyperbole, but I can make the promise because two things are true. Number one, I've done this for 25 years with people from 75 countries with 3 million people, and there's nothing you've gone through that I haven't seen. And I can show you how to make the shift. Not because I'm so smart, but because I have to be an idiot at this stage not to see that there are patterns in human behavior. There are certain things that if you do them, you're going to feel extraordinary. And if you do other things, you're going to be depressed and frustrated and overwhelmed. And all you have to do is see those patterns, but most of us don't have that privilege because we're busy spending our life, making a living. We start out really young. We have all these ideas and dreams and this excitement for our life, and gradually that wanes, doesn't it? Because after a while, you get disappointed, you have some failures, quote unquote, some frustrations. People tell you, hey, you're a bit naive to think this stuff could work out. Or lower your expectations. And the minute you do that, you've lost your life. What you have now is life as a job. Life is something that we go out and we do every day so we can start over and do it again, instead of finding that juice that God gave us, that unique expression of ourselves that'll touch other people and make us feel like this life has a greater meaning than just the day-to-day stuff. And so we want to deliver on that in the next 7 days. That's a big promise. But it can happen, and the reason I believe it can happen is not only because I know my stuff, but you know yours. If you're listening to me right now, you're one of the few who do. You're not one of those people who settle. Everybody talks a great game, don't they? Oh, yeah, I'd like to transform my life. Sure, I'd like to be physically fit and energetic. I'd like to have more time with my kids, of course. Yes, I want to find that ideal person, or I want to put the juice back in my relationship. Of course I'd like to do well financially. I'd like to be financially free. Maybe I'll hit the lottery. Most people got great goals, great wishes is what they really have, but they have no plan. Hope will not get us what we want. If that's all it took, we'd all be rich, we'd all be thin, we'd all have the greatest relationships, and our kids would all be perfect. We'd all feel this incredible connection with God every moment, but few people do. And it's the few that actually make it their focus and they take action upon it. So the fact that you're not just one of those people talking, but you took action, that's pretty unique. You're like me. I was willing to buy all these lousy tapes. I didn't even have the money, and I'd go out and get those things because something inside of me was not willing to settle for less than I could be. Something inside of me knew there was more, and I didn't want to live in despair anymore, and I didn't want to be embarrassed about my body, and I didn't want to feel like my life didn't have a real purpose. And so you're probably not where I was. I'm sure you're much further along than I was along that journey. Maybe you are where I am now, which is juiced about my life, and you're just looking for that extra advantage, those extra little tools that you can tweak things to take it to another level so you can enjoy even more and give even more to the people around you. But I can tell you this. I know you can succeed at this because you made it through your pessimism, skepticism, stuff that really kills our faith. People tell me all the time, oh, I'm skeptical about this kind of stuff. I'm pessimistic. I say, no, you're gutless. You're scared. Tell the truth. You're afraid to get your hopes up. I got it. I've been there too. You're afraid to get excited about something and then have it not work, because so often that happens. But certain things work. There are laws of life. If you live them, you'll get results. If you sow, you'll reap. And the reason they work is because they've been modeled from people that have already made it happen. I've spent a quarter of a century with some of the most challenged people in the world, helping turn things around, and also some of the greatest leaders of the heart, people like Mother Teresa, God rest her soul, or a lady I got to know very well, Princess Diana. And I'm not telling you this to drop names. I'm telling you because I want you to realize I've had the privilege of connecting with people that uniquely inspired millions. I've also been around leaders of the head, brilliant brains in science and finance. I've coached now for more than 7 years on the top financial traders in the world, and I've literally had communication with them every day, 5 days a week for 7 years. And I watched him make $500 million in a day and helped him to coach him through changes along the way. Not just a pump up and motivation and positive thinking. If that's what you want from this, that's not what these 7 days are about, but strategy. Step-by-step things you do to be able to deal with real-life challenges and turn them around now. Step-by-step things you do to make sure you can enjoy the process while you're dealing with those inevitable challenges that we all have in our lives. So I know it'll work for you because you didn't just see the stuff, you got over your skepticism, you said, I'm willing to take a chance, and more importantly, now you're actually listening to it. You took the step of listening. That's a big step, frankly. You know, every journey, and this is a journey, I promise you, a great journey you've begun, but every journey begins with that first step. You know, the old adage they say, it's overused, but it's true. And the first step is listening. So if you got faith and you got the ability to take action, you have the ability to change anything in your life. And I don't know where you are right now. I don't know if you're in the most challenged time of your life or if you're in the victory period. But wherever you are, it can change with two things: consistent focus and consistent action. And I can promise you, I don't care how big the challenge is, you can turn it around. You know, at this stage of my life, I'm the guy that gets the call when the fire starts. You know, when all of a sudden the golfer had a 6-stroke advantage and he ended up losing by 4 strokes on national television. I mean, you don't want to get back up and go through that again. Or I get the call when a president is under fire and there's an impeachment hearing. Somebody wants some strategy or conversation, or a couple is in a position where they're trying to figure out what to do because their son or daughter is suicidal. Or on the positive side, you know, rock and roll group says, you know what, we're feeling burnt out. We're succeeding. We're doing our best, but we're not enjoying it. You know, you got the tools here to help us be fulfilled. Step up and deliver, and it's a blast. Or I get people stop me every day to tell me these great stories of how they changed their body or their relationships or their finances, or they started a company. Or sometimes I get the call just to celebrate. I just received a call a few days ago from a man who called me up and said, listen, I've been using your stuff for years. I've gone to all your seminars, listened to all your tapes. I was struggling like crazy. And in 7 years, I built this company. I just sold it for $120 million. I'd like you to come on my jet and celebrate with me. I thought, that's a nice call, right? But I've had so many experiences in so many different countries with so many different kinds of people. I mean, I've dealt with the kids in the South Bronx addicted to cocaine, and I've dealt with the top CEOs in Hollywood addicted to cocaine. You know, I mean, people's challenges are the same no matter where you go in the world. Whether it's Southeast London, Tasmania, or California, you're going to see that human beings are the same. We have different beliefs, we have different rituals, but we have some of the same challenges, and the solutions that work for human beings are the same worldwide. Now, initially, I took all the things I've learned from all the people I've worked with, and obviously, while I was quote-unquote supposedly teaching them, I was learning from them. I was applying it to myself. And I made huge changes in my body and my emotions and my relationships and my finances. But you know what? Whenever you make a change and you make things better, you feel great for a while, and then pretty soon there's another gap. There's a gap between where you are and where you want to be if you're healthy. Only people that are lying say, oh yeah, everything's perfect. How long does it stay like that? Because we always raise our standards. Because one of the needs we have as human beings is to grow. If you don't grow, you die. It's not about your body. It's not about the money. It's not about the weight. It's about discovering what you're really capable of and experiencing that feeling of aliveness. And you can't have that unless you realize there's a gap. So if things are going really great in your business, usually, you know, your kids are not getting enough attention and you feel bad about it. Oh, what do you do? And you got to handle it, right? Or if things are great with your kids, you're not taking any time for your own body. Or you're taking time for your body and you don't have time with your spouse. It's the nature of a human being that whatever we focus on, we'll tend to get more of. If you focus on problems, you'll get more of them. If you focus on how to make something better, it'll get better if you really act on that focus. But we don't usually have a systematic way of looking at each of the areas of life that are most important. And in fact, most of us focus on things that aren't important and we make them too important. You know, I really believe that people in life are usually stressed simply because they're focusing on things and giving enormous energy to things that don't really matter that much. You know, we focus on to get all upset. And have you ever done that? I sure have myself. I'm so upset about something, all the emotion. And you know what? 6 months from now, you don't even remember it. Maybe even 6 days from now, sometimes an hour from now. But you don't take the time to focus on the things that matter, like your body or your relationship or, you know, what's happening with your kids or your connection with God or, hey, you know, what do I really want from my life instead of keep doing the same stuff over and over and over again and trying to do it more and harder even though you're not fulfilled? See, most people are afraid to look at what's missing. But you know what? The moment you can figure out what's missing, it won't be missing anymore because you can get a system, you can start to focus on it, you can start to move towards it, and you can achieve anything you put the focus and action into. anything anybody else has ever made happen. You have the same resources. You have the same nervous system. Some of us are bigger or stronger. Some of us have more background in one thing, greater education. But you know what? Those limits are not the real limits. The limits are the limits of our psychology, our mindset, our beliefs, and the feelings we have about them. If you believe that this is it, this is the best life's going to get, you're right. And if you believe, you know what, I don't care how bad it's been, I don't care how many times I've tried this doesn't work, this is going to do it, and I'm going to take action every day until I find the way, you will. And all you have to do is look around in life and see the examples of that everywhere. It's not people's background that makes them successful. It's their psychology. It's their mindset. It's do they have a way of consistently focusing on something, obsessing about something that's so important to them, and are they willing to do whatever it takes to make it happen versus talk about it? See, everybody's got a story about why they can't have what they want. And I'm here to tell you the only thing that stops us, and I'm not telling you, I've done this so many times, so I'm not pointing the finger, trust me. But the only thing that ever stops us from getting what we really want is the story we have about why we can't have it. And we all come up with those stories. So part of what we want to do in the next week is get rid of the stories, come up with the plans that are proven because they're based on people that have already succeeded at the highest levels, and then let you tweak it to your own style. You don't have to be crazy and insane like me. I know at times I want to talk too fast and I might be a little obnoxious. I don't mean to be. I really want to serve. But I got to do anything I can to get through to you because I really know what's possible. If you're at the top, you're not there. There's another level. And you're not going to be happy till you find it. Maybe it's a level of joy. You're the top of the money, or you're the top of your career, or you're the chairman of the company, but there's some new adventure awaiting you. And unless you keep finding it, life doesn't feel like life. It feels like a job. It feels like something you gotta do. And there's nothing worse than feeling like you gotta do versus you get to do. Life is a get to. And we so often convince ourselves it's a got to, and we wonder why we're not so happy. So how are we going to do this? Well, the first way I did this years ago is I created a product called Personal Power. You probably saw it on TV because I obliterated the airways with it. And I was on television every 30 minutes, 24 hours a day for more than 10 years consistently, somewhere in North America, the United States or Canada. That's an actual statistic. And so 35 million of my tapes and CDs went out there, and people used them to change their lives. And the greatest gift of my life today is every day of my life, no exaggeration, my friend, every day, I have people come up to me, and some days it's a dozen or more, some days it's 2 or 3, but I don't miss a day if I'm in the public, and people tell me about how this work has changed their life. And usually say, thanks, coach. And if they say, you did it, I always remind them, no, you did it. And I was just there as a good friend, kind of reminding you of what you already know, because learning is remembering. Socrates said that centuries ago, and it's the truth. You know this stuff, but when do we take the time for ourselves to actually focus on it? So I'm your excuse to focus on you and give yourself the gifts you deserve. I'm no special guy. I've just spent years doing this stuff, just like whatever you're doing. I'm sure you've mastered it. If you've done it for years and every day you held yourself to a higher standard, I'm sure you can teach me in that area. So thank you for the privilege of letting you share my point of view here. And by the way, you don't have to agree with everything I say. I don't expect it. I'm not here to be your guru. Take what makes sense to you and use it. What you don't, say, the guy's nuts, and throw it away. But know that whatever is here that's valuable, you got to act on. You got to follow through on. So how do we get ourselves to do that? Well, with Personal Power, I created a 30-day program. And that program has gotten results from people, as they say, all over the earth. And it's pretty famous. And you may even know somebody that's used it. And maybe that's one of the reasons you picked up this program. Maybe you didn't see an infomercial. Maybe a friend said, you got to do this. Well, however you got here, why did I change it? Well, I'll tell you why. I started doing focus groups, and the product was still selling like crazy, and I thought, I want to reach even more people. Who are we missing? Instead of saying, wow, look how successful we are, how do we get to people we're not reaching? And we do these focus groups, and they'd say, well, do you not believe that, Tony Robbins is real? And the majority of the time they said, no, I believe he's sincere. I believe he's a real guy. Do you not believe people get results? No, I'm sure those people got results, and then they'd say things like, I just don't have the time. And I think, what do you mean the time? And they'd say, 30 days. I'd say, 30 days to change your whole life? Are you nuts? I mean, you're not worth that. It's not even a whole day. It's 45 minutes, an hour, maybe a day, 90 minutes, for God's sakes. I was frustrated thinking, God, these people really think this way, but we live in that nanosecond culture. Remember the old days you were taught that all this technology was going to transform the world, we're going to have all this free time? I don't know about you, but it hasn't worked out too well for me. I mean, most people got themselves a Palm Pilot so they can have their email wherever they are. They don't have to go home and sit on the computer. They can do it everywhere. They got their beeper. They got their cell phone. Many of these things are all put together with a camera and music simultaneously these days. I mean, we are constantly responding to the demands of the environment. and rarely taking the time to decide what we really want. And whenever you react to stimulus, you're not in control. And when you're not in control, you're not going to stay happy. Because listen, a measure of your self-esteem comes down to one simple thing. Do you feel like you control events, or events are controlling you? And I'll tell you what, it's so easy to get sucked in. And I've done it myself, and I've done it even when I've known these tools. I mean, this is not something you figure out one time and then all of a sudden it's all perfect. It's like muscle. You don't get muscle by going to the gym once. You develop a system of working out on a regular basis, and after a while, working out is fun. I mean, you look forward to it. It's your time. Part of what I want to do in this very first tape is get you to commit to your time. You know, if there's anything missing in our lives, it's time with ourselves, thinking about not problems, but what we're grateful for, thinking about what we want, creating the plan to make it happen, creating the juice of our lives, stopping and taking in what already is great, because you can't build on failure, you can only build on success. But if you do that once in a while you feel pretty good. If you got a system for doing it, that's what will change your life. So part of what triggered me to do this is years ago, I said, you know, I got to have my hour of power. I got to have at least 15 minutes for fulfillment. I got to have that short time, the first time in the morning, to set myself up for success, because rarely does a great idea interrupt you. You know, rarely does beauty just suddenly surround you and engulf you. You have to stop and notice and appreciate it. You got to seek it out. You got to schedule it. You know, everybody talks about things, and I tell people when they plan their life, I said, you know, talk's cheap. You talk about it, it's a dream. When you start to envision things, it gets exciting. When you start to get a plan, it's possible. But when you schedule it, it's real. So part of the power of this Get the Edge program, and by the way, you're going to see I snuck in, I gave you a bonus of the first week of personal power, and I'll explain that in a minute why I did that. But part of the benefit of this is just having a simple system that you say, for a week, I'm going to do this. And if you do it for a week, I bet you'll do things like this for yourself ongoing. After a week, you're going to feel so different about your life. You're going to have so much momentum that you say, well, can I really change my life in a week? Of course. In fact, that's what made me say, okay, you can't do it in 30 days? I'll make it a week. You can do anything for a week, can't you? Come on, a week for yourself. So I thought, if I made it a week, can I really do it? And I thought, of course, because you know what? People say I have no time. I think that's such a lie. We lie to ourselves so much. That's why we don't have what we want. Now, I've done it too. I'm not pointing fingers. But you can't lie to yourself and expect to have the truth be a part of your life and have success that comes from the truth. See, all change happens in a minute. You got to remember the power of a minute. In 1 minute, you could change everything in your life. In 1 minute, you can say, never again. Never. As the Jewish people have said in their country. They set a standard there, and they said, we will never go through a Holocaust again. It will never occur again. When a human being gets that point of never again, it takes a minute. In a minute, you can also do some other things. In a minute, you can look somebody in the eyes like you've never looked at them before. In a minute, you can hug somebody like you've never hugged them before. In a minute, you can say the words, I love you, and mean it at a level you've never meant it before. In a minute, you can say, I quit, or let's begin, or it's over, or I do. Think of the minutes of your life that have changed who you are. And I got to promise you, in these little boxes, we got a lot of minutes. We got a lot of them in here. Minutes, there's moments right at the point you think, this guy's insane, and I'm going to turn this off. You stay there a little bit. I can just tell you because I've done it for years. It's different from somebody else. One phrase will wake something up inside you. I'm not going to give you anything. It's all inside you. But when it wakes up, baby, it is time to move, and I don't have to tell you that. It'll just happen. You'll suddenly say, this is it, no more. And it's kind of like that Pearl Harbor movie when, you know, you see them come diving down and the admiral should be celebrating and they say, Admiral, we've got this great victory. And he says, oh, I fear we've awakened a sleeping giant. And inside of each of us is that giant. It's a giant of emotion because that's where it starts. It's the emotion. Emotions start wars, don't they? Emotions get you married or they get you divorced. Emotions make you have kids. Emotions make you break through the problems or give up. It just depends which emotions you decide to live with. So, how are we going to do it? Well, two options I'm going to give you. I created personal power, and so I decided, even though I said 7 days, to do two things. One is I went into the studio, and I wanted to take things and give you the best of what I've learned today. Because when I made personal power, frankly, you know, I was 28 years old. So this many years later, I've lived a lot of life, and the world's changed. I mean, during that period of time, we watched the wall come down, communism disappear. You know, we've seen transformations in music and movies and the way we experience our lives. We've got the internet. People relate in a totally different way. Or by the time you're listening to this, they're probably cloning people, for God's sakes. People say, that'd be a great time management. I'd have some extra people to get the work done. No. Here's the point. During that same time, I've obviously made big changes in my life. I've learned a lot more about who I am. I've made some stupid mistakes, and I've had some enormous victories. Good stuff has come through me on a huge scale, and I've learned. And so as a result, Get the Edge is a little longer than personal power. You say, how could it be longer? The other one was 30 days. Well, let me be specific. You can do this in 7 days. As you'll see, there's 7 days of program if you look at the program in front of you. This is day 1. But what I did do is I made some workshops in here. Instead of just giving you some ideas and hopefully inspiring you and giving you a couple strategies and say, go do it, I actually have stopped in the middle of a couple of these and said, let's walk through it together and do it while I'm here with you, as if I was coaching you one-on-one, as if I was physically there with you, like a trainer. So you can break those up. There's only a few, and you can do this 1 CD a day and do it for 10 straight days. Now, if you're a maniac, you could do this in a weekend, and if you're insane and on drugs, you could do it in a day and be completely overloaded. But I suggest 7 or 10 days. Pick one or the other. Now, having said that, let me give you one other piece. I also sent you as a bonus the first week of my personal power program. It's the most successful personal achievement program of all time. And I'm going to recommend you start with that after you're done with this tape. You say, well, why wouldn't I do that? Why wouldn't I get your first cutting edge stuff? Because, well, how to explain this is kind of interesting. I really believe that this whole reason you're here listening to this is because you're a person that wants an extraordinary quality of life, not a good life, right? And I'm sure that's true. You wouldn't still be listening. You would have shut me off a long time ago. The point of the matter is, if you want an extraordinary life, it has to be on your terms. It has to be what you call extraordinary, not somebody else's. But I can tell you there are 2 things you must master to have an extraordinary life. And most people rarely even master one of them. The first is you must master the science of achievement. And achievement is a science. How to go from where you are to where you want to be is a plan. It's a strategy. It's specific. If you want to do well financially and you're starting with nothing or you're starting with something, there are specific things you can do that if anybody does them, you will be financially independent in 8, 10, 12, 14, 15 years, certainly in a shorter period of time than you ever dreamed of, and it doesn't require gigantic risks. If you want to be physically fit, if you want to achieve a certain level of fitness, of health, of energy, if you want your body to look a certain way, that is a science. There are very specific things you do, and you'll have them. You want energy? I got a friend named Stu Middleman who ran 1,000 miles in 11 days. 85 miles a day. 2.5 marathons a day. You go, so what, he's a freak? What's this got to do with me? He wasn't even a runner. He went and studied some people in Central America, a group of Indians that once a year run 76 miles in one day for fun. He thought it was crazy. He wanted to study the psychology of it. And he found out there were laws of the body that if you practice these, your energy will explode. It'll go beyond anything you imagine. You're going to learn that while you're in this program. So there are laws for achievement. And I can tell you, I'm a kid from Azusa, if you know where that is, California. It's not a big, giant place. No knock to the city. It's just not a big, giant place. I don't have like some great role model that walked me through all this stuff. You know, I didn't have any money or background or unique education. What I had was one thing. Just an enormous love of people, an enormous desire to serve, and an unwillingness to settle, and a massive amount of action. I don't know how you chunk those 4 things, but those are the things that push me. And I just knew that there were answers out there, and I was willing to get them from everywhere. And I didn't want to hear the standard answer in the standard education. That's why I went to tapes and books and seminars. I just looked for anybody who was on the edge. Like, go find Stu. If you want to figure out how to have energy, that's what I did. Who's the most energetic man on earth? That's how I found him. I asked that question. I went and met him. I started interviewing. I figured out what he did, how he did it. I did the same thing, and my energy turned into this nonstop talking that's probably bugging you now. So let me slow down for a moment. The truth is, if you want to achieve, there are laws, and I don't care any area. And again, a kid from Azusa, I've had the privilege of, making hundreds of millions of dollars. Literally, I made $400 million in a day taking a company public. I've had the privilege of losing hundreds of millions of dollars also when stock prices changed. I've been able to sculpt my body. I've been able to raise 4 kids that I'm so proud of and love dearly, and who are people that contribute to society in meaningful ways. I've been able to find that connection with my Creator that I embrace and I know is right for me. I'm sure you've either found the way or you'll find the way that's right for you. But there are laws. There are ways to do that. So why have I gone on and on about this? Well, we're going to teach you those laws, but the first thing that keeps you from using them is your conditioning. So we all got conditioning about why it can't be done. Or we got some bad habits, and those have to be changed. And they're conditioned. They're a part of you. They've been going on for years. And so personal power in that first week teaches you why you do what you do and how to change those things, how to change that conditioning so you get momentum. Because momentum is power. When you start to get momentum, it's like that little snowball starting to go down the hill. It starts to speed up to a point where all of a sudden it's got so much momentum, nothing will stop it. So personal power will get you started. And here's the other thing about it. It's short. The first session is like about an hour, but most of them are about 35, 40 minutes. So it'll get you going here initially and get you momentum. And I gave it to you, as part of this program at no extra charge because I wanted you to get it. If you ever want to do the rest of the 30 days, you can call us and get it. But then here's what I want you to do. Come back here, and then what I want you to do is go through this process, because this process is even more comprehensive, and it's about the following things. Today, we're going to establish a habit. I'm kind of telling you what we're going to do in the whole program so you understand the system, but we're going to establish a habit that if you make it a part of your life, I promise you, I guarantee you beyond a shadow of a doubt, you will be able to experience dreams that you never thought were possible. Joy that seemed like it was unsustainable, and you'll sustain it. A connection with people like you never thought was possible. Not because I'm so smart, because these are laws, and I've stolen all this by modeling people that are successful, and I've used it, and it works for me too, and it'll work for you. But also, then we're going to begin the process of actually figuring out anything in your life that you want to change, and you haven't changed it, and we're going to take you through a 7-step process and do it. That's tomorrow. Once you go through those 7 steps, the changes will have begun. You'll begin to make the big changes you want in your life. Then we're going to look at the area that for most people has the most pain, and a lot of people don't even pay attention to it because we get caught up in work or something else that's easier to deal with, and that's called relationships. And that doesn't just mean your intimate relationships. It means your kids, it means your workers, but certainly your intimate relationships. This is the area where there can be so much pain, even for people that have achieved. I promise you, at the end of those 2 CDs, you're going to have an experience of clarity about where you are, what you want to have, and you're going to have some tools that will create that joy in your life, either to attract the relationship you want or to recreate the relationship if you're already in it, or to make the decision to make a change if you're in a relationship where the two of you really aren't matched and it's not really appropriate long term. You'll have the courage to follow through on any of these things, to make it better or to make the change. Then, of course, you got to have energy. So how do we increase the energy? How do we get your health to the absolute peak level possible so you'll follow through and do all this? The next day, the 5th day, we're going to come back to those emotions. And we're going to show you which emotions will strengthen you, which ones will weaken you, how do you change them in an instant so you know what really works. Then we go to money. And by the way, money should come down further on the list, because if you got all the money in the world but you're not healthy, if you got all the money in the world and you're unhappy, if you got all the money in the world and your relationship feels terrible, you're not a happy camper. But if you got the energy and if you got the emotion, you got the relationship, then why not have the money too? Why not have the freedom to do what you want, when you want, where you want, with a system that really works? And then finally, the 7th day, or the 10th, depending on how you do it, is the power of why. Finding the sustainable purpose for your life. I mean, there are going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there are going to be problems. Those things don't go away. You just get better quality problems, that's all. I mean, a lot of people in life think they're going to be happy someday. They're going to have this extraordinary life when they have no problems. Well, if you had no problems, you'd probably be dead. Problems are a sign of life. What you want to do is use them to make yourself more. This is not a program that's going to eliminate all problems. It'll help you get rid of your current list so you can create a better list that makes you grow to the next level. That's what life is. So if problems don't go away, you better have a deeper purpose for your life, something that gives you juice. And if you're in a you feel like there's no meaning in your life, you may even want to jump to that last tape if you want to and listen to it. I'm fine with that. But you got to listen to that tape, if nothing else, the power of purpose. So how do you do it? Do the first week of personal power. Then what you're going to do this week. And by the way, make sure you take advantage of that personal profile we offered you. It only takes 10 minutes online. You'll see the receipt in your box about how to do it. And after 10 minutes, you'll be blown away. You'll get a 30-page report that describes to you what kind of behaviors are natural for you under stress and how to deal with those, how it may create conflicts in your relationships or your business. It'll also show you what you value most at this stage in your life, what's most important to you. And that'll help you understand why sometimes maybe you take 2 steps forward and pull 1 step back and start to sabotage because you have some things that you value that are in conflict. So take advantage of that. I think you'll find it invaluable. It's the personal profile. And again, how to do it is in the notes at the front of your book. So I told you up front that what we're going to do is get you to create an extraordinary life, and I said you needed 2 skills. I never finished it. The first skill was the science of achievement. Step by step, here's how you do it. You can achieve anything. Anybody has. Anyone who wants to can make it happen if they follow certain laws. If you sow, you'll reap, as I've already said. But you can succeed and not be fulfilled. And success without fulfillment is failure. And I can't tell you, I've dealt with literally millions of people around the world. Again, some of the greatest achievers in the world. And I've met a lot of achievers, but I've met very few that are truly fulfilled. See, to have an extraordinary life, you need to be able to have the science of achievement, but you also have to master the art of fulfillment. And it's an art, it's not a science. In fulfillment, there are principles. There are things that if you use them, you can create joy right now, even though you haven't achieved all your goals. And you know what? If you're more joyful right now, you're going to have more energy to go after them. See, most of us have been trained, at least in the Western world, we're supposed to go do things so we can achieve, so we can eventually feel good. In the East, I'm supposed to feel good and enjoy myself right now because this is all there is. One is focused on the future, the other is focused on the present. We need both. Listen, if you live here in the West and you just sit around and you bliss out and feel wonderful, you're going to be fulfilled. But for how long? You know, if you just sit there and be fulfilled, people will come and take your furniture. You got to do something with your life. Life requires that we do things that allow us to contribute to the world, but it also requires, if we're going to be fulfilled, that we find a way to enjoy them. And if you can do that, now you're at the top of the ladder. Because if you don't do that, you bump into the experience I bumped into. I achieved. I made it all happen. You know, I felt so excited about my life. I was juiced. I was giving, and I was seeing the result. And, you know, one year we fed 1 million people at Thanksgiving to my foundation. It was one of the biggest dreams I ever had. I felt so alive, so happy, so juiced about things. You know, I made a ton of money, you know, and so I had all the choices. I could do all the crazy stuff. I got to have my island and a plane and all that stuff that when you grow up poor, you think, boy, that would just be it. But the stuff didn't do it for me. I knew it never would. The people part really did. But there came a point where I was so focused on doing and giving that I wasn't taking any time for myself. And I remember one day, actually, being on stage. There were 18,000 people in the room. They gave me a standing ovation. I had this incredible thing. I felt so alive when I was giving to them, but when I stopped giving, I felt empty. I mean, it was a scary moment. And I realized there were some things in my life that I had not focused on, and they were hurting. And I pretended that they were okay. And they weren't. One had to do with my relationships. Another had to do with my relationship with my own time with myself. I never took the time anymore. I started out doing that every day, doing my hour of power. But now I was so swept up in doing, I wasn't taking care of me. So here's what this is about today. You are going to start a process, if you're willing to, of taking time for yourself, of taking the most scarce resource you got, time, and giving it to you. And not just thinking about problems, but going through a very simple system that'll line you up for success. Because if problems aren't going to go away, how am I ever going to have a great life? Well, the answer to that is to realize that problems and happiness have no linkage whatsoever. I learned this because all of a sudden I felt like I had all these problems, and in the midst of problems, because I made changes, and by the way, anytime you make some changes, you're going to have some problems because people aren't going to agree with it, or they're not going to like it, or they're going to judge it and going to say, why did you do that? Or I don't like it. Change always creates problems. As you have problems, you create solutions, which, by the way, are more changes. And when you create more changes, what does that do? It creates more problems. So problems are here to stay. In fact, they won't be problems for you. They'll be challenges, and we love a challenge, don't we? Nobody wants a problem, but we love a challenge. I mean, why do we watch sports? Two people take on a challenge to see what they can do. Why do you start a new business? What is it that makes you attracted to someone and saying, my gosh, you know, can I connect with them? Can I get through to this person? Can I get this idea across? It's challenge. Challenge is necessary for growth, and growth is life. So it's a cool system. So let's get right to the point here. If you're going to have an extraordinary life, that life where you are juiced, then all that means is you're going to have a life where the primary emotions of your life are the ones you want. See, it doesn't mean that life works out every way you want. Sometimes it rains on your parade. Sometimes the events of your life you can't control, but you can control what it means to you. And when you control what it means to you, you have the ultimate power of your life. You have the edge. The ultimate advantage. See, I'll give you an example. Did you see that movie that won the Academy Award, Life is Beautiful? It's a story of a man who has an extraordinary life. Not because he has more money than anybody else, not because he's in a situation where everything is easy, but because he's alive. He has this joy about him. And by the way, if you've actually ever met Roberto Benigni, the man who plays this character, you know that he lives this way day to day. You know, he was authoring this thing from himself. He's such a joyous guy. And when he won the Academy Award, you never saw so much emotion. He was like a little boy, and everybody loved it because nobody else has the guts to be that way. Or they've forgotten what it feels like to just feel, to be alive. What makes him extraordinary? An extraordinary psychology, an extraordinary mindset, an extraordinary way of looking at the world. And in the movie, the man has that, doesn't he? And who does it affect? everyone. Everyone within the realm of his influence. His wife feels like the most cherished person on earth, and so does he. Because when you give that kind of love and that kind of joy, people give it back. It's infectious. His son seems so happy, and they're in the middle of the Nazis taking over their country, and if you know the story, I won't run it, you know that they get picked up. And there's such a connection amongst the family that the wife is not being sent away, and she gets on the train with them. And they're in the middle of this camp. This man, with his extraordinary psychology, figures a way of looking at the situation for his son, presenting it so that his son sees it as a game. Isn't life a game anyway? Instead of this horrible situation. And because he has that perspective, in the end, his family survives. See, if you want your family to survive, if you want them to succeed, if you want them to have joy, if you want your kids to have a lasting love, if you want to be able to give gifts in your life and not just take care of yourself, then you got to have an extraordinary psychology within yourself. It's not where you live physically, it's where you live internally. There are two worlds, the inside world and the outside world. We can't totally control the outside one, but we have absolute control of the inside one. But you know what? Most of us are too busy to take any time to check out and see how it's going on in here. Or we just accept it as this is the status quo, this is who I am, this is my life, or I'll get to it later, mañana, I got to handle this first, something else that's not so important. I want to invite you, my friend, to take the time to say, I'm going to have every day an hour of power. Every day I'm going to have at least 30 minutes to thrive, or 15 minutes to be fulfilled, for God's sakes, where I'm going to take those 15 minutes and I'm going to focus on everything I'm grateful for. I mean, if we're going to have a life, we got to have time. And the time has to have some specific things we do, and one of those is gratitude. If you want to know what's the quality of your life, how much time do you spend in gratitude? How much time are you grateful and appreciative to the point that emotion wells up in you? I'm feeling it now. I'm so grateful to God. I'm so grateful to have the privilege to serve you right now. So if you can get to that state, everything changes. I'll give you an example. If you think about being fearful, when you're fearful, you're not grateful. If you want to get rid of fear, which everybody has, and people say, oh, I'm not fearful, I'm stressed. Or if you have in places like LA or New York, they're achievers. They can't even be stressed there. They have angst. You know, it's a higher level of more sophisticated levels of stress. But you know what? If you follow the trail of stress, it brings you to fear. And everybody's got fears. Fear they're not enough. Fear that it won't work out. Fear they won't be loved. Everybody's got that at some level unconsciously. We're human. So you can put the fear aside when you're grateful. I don't just mean intellectually, yeah, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that. I mean stopping, thinking, seeing, and feeling. So I'm going to walk you through a system that includes gratitude. Every day of our life, we got to have a vision. Every day of our life, we got to have something that excites us. When people tell me, oh, I'm bored, I'm tired, that thing is boring. No, you're boring. Because you don't have something that excites you in your life. You haven't come up with a vision. You haven't come up with something to move towards. We all need something that's going to make us use more of who we are. Our courage, our passion, our joy. Face our fears. Build our emotional muscles. But you don't build emotional muscles when you do the same thing day after day after day. What you get is a life that's unfulfilling. So we've got to have a vision. So every day I'm going to take you through a simple process that'll get you to expand your vision so you have a compelling future. That thing that makes you want to get up early. If there's a reason, you got to have a reason. And I have friends that have sold their companies. One guy sold his company and made almost $1 billion in cash, about 800 million plus. And he was so excited for about 2 months, maybe 3. But you know what? After that, there's only so much time you want to sit on the beach by yourself because everybody else is working, and doing something and being productive. There's only so many cocktails you can take. There's only so many, movies you can watch. There's a limit to it. What he needed was a new vision. Anytime you achieve a goal, as you get close to it, you better set up the next one real quick, because otherwise it's kind of like postpartum. You were looking forward to that baby, and now you got him. And sometimes in the middle of the night, you're going, what did I do here? Have you ever had that experience? I got 4 kids. I can relate. I hope you can. But you know what? You also have the experience on the other side of it. It's so wonderful. It's kind of like, the guys that went to the moon for the first time, the first astronauts. They worked their whole life. They achieved this goal. They walked on the moon. Then they came back. There was a ticker tape parade. They were heroes. They shook the president's hand. Now what? What do you do now that you walked on the moon? Well, maybe you got to find how to get adventure not out of a moon flight, but adventure out of a smile. Maybe you got to have a vision for what your life's about now. Without a vision, People perish. And you got to have a daily vision that excites you. Otherwise, life becomes mundane. And there's nothing worse than an okay life. I told you, you're not going to have that when we're done here. I promise you, if you get this little habit, you won't have to settle for a mundane life. What people are going to go is, what happened to you? Because there's an excitement in creation. There's not a lot of excitement in maintenance. I mean, you have to maintain your body. You got to maintain things, but creating things, that's what God created us for. Gave us the gift to make choices that could create new things, businesses, ideas, families, friends, a garden. And it's available to every one of us. But if you don't got a vision each day, then the day is not going to have much juice, is it? So every day there's got to be a little time for vision, right? Time for gratitude, time for vision. Every day you got to move. I'll tell you why most people are unhappy. They don't move. Look at our lives today. I mean, most people live in a box, don't they? And then what do? They get up in the morning, have a box cereal breakfast, right? And then they get in their box and they drive. And sure enough, they drive to their box office. They go up a box elevator. They type on a box. They talk on a box. They have a box lunch. They drive their box home. They turn on a box to be entertained. And maybe they just really go for the variety and have a cylinder to try and change their state. Listen, life has got to be about movement. When you move, you're alive. Emotion comes from motion. The more you move, the more you feel. Motion in your voice. For me to have this voice change, I'm changing the way I move. You saw me right now, you think I'm a maniac because I'm moving different ways, but that's how you feel. And by the way, the less you move, the less you feel, the less alive you are. If you're totally rigid, totally inflexible, no movement, this is known as death. Right? So if you have emotionally, you're stuck, move. So every day you got to move. Now that can be a simple, gentle form of exercise, but it's something that's got to happen. And by the way, if you want a great relationship with anybody, what do you got to have? Some time with them, don't you? How about you? How about you? And not only do you have to have time with them, but maybe have a conversation with them. And most of us got conversations in our head, but we're not directing them. So we're going to show you each day how to have a conversation that you direct, a way of directing your mind, of shaping your mind, of conditioning your mind. It's kind of like going to the gym and just getting in the best shape of your life, but it's the best mental, emotional, spiritual, physical shape. And you don't need me to do it. I don't have to follow you around the rest of your life. This is going to be something you're going to do for yourself. I'll be here for the first 7 days or 14 if you decide to do these 2 weeks with me. And if you want to visit with me again, great. Or come see me at a seminar. I'd love to meet you. But you don't need me. I'm not here to create dependency. I'm here to remind you what you know is true, just to create some habits that will create the result you want. So, how does it work? Well, let's do this first. It's time for you to make some discoveries. The quality of your life is the quality of the consistent emotions you experience. I'll say that again. How you feel is your life. What are the feelings you have on a consistent basis? So I'm going to ask you, just take a moment, and if you have our journal there, you can do it in a journal, you can do it on a piece of paper. You don't make it rules-driven, just do it. Don't just do it in your head. I want you to write down all the emotions you experience in an average week. And on one side, write all the good ones, the other side, all the bad ones. Now, when I say bad ones, there really are no bad emotions, but the ones that are painful and you don't like. So all I want you to do is write them down. And when you write them down, try not to edit them. Don't try and say, well, just do it this way. If you experience this emotion on a consistent basis, doesn't mean every day, but at least once a week, write it down. The ones you consistently feel, not the one once in a while you feel this feeling, because what this is going to tell us is where you're really living right now. This doesn't tell me your income. I don't care. But I care about what you're passionate about. I care about what hurts you. I care about what you love. I care about what moves you. And you do too. And you don't even have to tell me the what's. Let's just figure out the feelings first. So please, take a moment right now, because now we're going to begin to stop talking, and we're going to start the process of doing. First step here is let's figure out where you are. Write down now, on one side, all the emotions you consistently feel in a week that are positive, on the other side, all negative. So stop the tape right now, or if it's a CD, just pause it, and get yourself to this right now. Go ahead. Are you still listening? I'm not going to continue until you do this. Come on here. You got to get the right. Don't just listen. Okay, if you're in your car and you say you can't do it, then turn off the CD or tape, stop it, pause it, and do it in your head at least. Or pull the car over. You're worth figuring out where you are. Cars are going to go by. You're going to drive the rest of your life. You're still going to get there. It'll take 3 minutes. Come on, be one of the few who do. Pull over. That's it. Pull over right now. Sit down and write this out just for a second. I promise you it'll be worth it. Go ahead and do it. Do it right now. So now you have some emotions that you really want. How do you create them? And you have some emotions you don't want. How do you get rid of them? Well, what if I told you literally could change how you feel in an instant? Well, you know this is true from your past experience at times, right? There are times, like we said earlier, where you're totally upset and then something got your attention and now you're laughing. You know, people can be literally at a funeral and they're in a terrible place and all of a sudden something cracks them up. I mean, it's pretty rare, but it has happened. People can be in a place where they're in the worst situation and somehow they find all their determination. How to do that specifically is what I want to show you real quickly now. And I'm going to give you a quick overview of it, but I'll give it to you in 3 parts. 3 things you need to feel anything. These are the reasons why you feel anything. In other words, if you feel sad or upset or frustrated or depressed, there's only 3 reasons. And if you change any one of these 3, you're going to change how you feel. And if you change all 3, you'll change how you feel completely. If you're feeling happy, if you're feeling excited, if you're feeling euphoric, if you're on a roll and you want to know why you feel that way, yeah, maybe great things are happening in your life, but there's a reason why you feel that way in this moment. Sometimes you have great things happening in your life and you still don't feel great. So how do you do that? There's 3 reasons. 3 things have to be in place for you to feel great. I call these 3 reasons the triad because there are 3 patterns that if you do these 3 patterns in your body in a certain way, you'll get a certain result, and it's like a recipe. You do one recipe, you get one result. You do another one, you get a different result. You get one kind of cake or another. So let's give you an example. I have a seminar I do that's the initial seminar most people go to. It's the Life Revolution. It's a chance in a weekend to revolutionize your whole life, not just change things or make it a little better, but to really step up and say, I'm going to transform it. I don't care if it's my body, my emotions, a fear, my job. It's time to do it. And we put people in an environment for 3 days of total immersion that is a blast, and people come out transformed. That process, though, very often, one of the first things I'll do is I'll ask people, what do you really want? I'll take people in the audience. We've got 1,500, 2,000 people in that type of program usually, and they'll say, oh, well, I want to make, $1 million. I want to make $1 billion. I want to help my kids get through school. I want to have more confidence. I want to lose 57 pounds. I say, okay, great. Why do you want these things? If you lost the 57 pounds, if you made the $1 billion, what are you going to get? And sooner or later they'd say, well, if I change the world, it'll make a difference. And I'll say, yeah, but what will that give you? And eventually say, well, it'll make me feel good, like my life had meaning. Or they'll say, if I lost 47 pounds, I'd feel more sexy, or I'd feel more energetic. Or they'd say, if I made this money, I'd feel freedom or power or secure. Whatever it is you want, you only want it because you think it's going to give you a feeling. And the truth of the matter is you can have that feeling right now if you just change these 3 patterns I'm going to tell you about. So the first pattern that determines how you feel is not the event, but what you do with your body in this moment. Right now, you're feeling, whatever you're feeling right now as you're listening to me, is related first to how you're using your body. If you're slumped over, if you've not been using it, if you're tired, you probably feel different than if you're listening to me walking right now as an example. Now, I'll give you a more specific example. If I were to tell you that there was a depressed person behind curtain number 1 over here, and for a $100,000 donation to your favorite charity, if you could describe them physically without seeing them, I bet you could do it, couldn't you? What's their posture like? Say it, or think it at least. You can say it, no one's going to hear it. You're probably in the car. You're walking, people talk on phones all the time. They don't know what's going on. Speak to me. Seriously, what's their body like? First, their posture's probably what? Slumped. Where are their eyes? Down. Where's their head? Down. What's their breathing like? Full or shallow? Of course it's shallow. Their facial expression, up and tight or slack? You know it's slack. Now, how come you know all these things without me telling you? Because you've practiced this stuff before, haven't you? We all have if we've ever experienced this. Now, if you do this with your body, I don't care who we are. If you do these things to your body, you're going to feel lousy. You're going to feel depressed. Now, if you change the way you use your body, if you put your shoulders back, if you breathe, if you use your voice in a different way, if you move or gesture in a different tempo, it's hard to feel depressed in that way. In fact, there was a research study that was done early in my career that was done at UC Berkeley. And they did something that sounded insane. Traditionally, if somebody's depressed, if they go to a traditional psychiatric approach, today we live with a philosophy that depression is merely a Prozac deficiency. That we live in this world today, that things aren't working out. Let's not resolve what's going on inside you. Let's just drug you. It's called better living through chemistry. Yeah, just drug you and keep on going. We do the same thing with kids today. We got this attention deficit disorder. They've now upgraded it to ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. This couldn't be the fact that kids are overstimulated, don't get enough focus or attention, and don't know how to use their energy in a world where things are going so slow when they're learning in school compared to how they are on the internet and on MTV or anything else. It must be that we should drug them into submission so they get as slow as us and more comfortable. It's an interesting way that we look at life today. The truth of the matter is these kids are using their bodies in ways that aren't acceptable, but they're not being directed. We go for the quick hit. We want the instant solution, even if it isn't the long-term solution that makes us more healthy. You can get a solution, but it may not be sustainable in a healthful way. The bottom line is, In that approach, we usually drug people. So at UC Berkeley, they tried something different. No drugs. Did something you're going to think sounds so stupid. Here's all they did. They came up with a simple approach. They took people that were clinically depressed. This means you achieved high levels of depression. You've got certification now. You are clinically depressed. You are an achiever at the depression level. This means you practice this pattern on a regular basis. And they took them, and by the way, I know I'm sounding obnoxious right now. I'm not trying to make depression sound like these people are terrible, because I felt it in my life a long time ago too, but I don't go there anymore because I know exactly what creates it. And I want to break the pattern of us thinking we're not in control. So please understand where I'm really coming from. But the point is, here's what they did. They had people come for 4 weeks, stand in front of this mirror that has 3 parts to it, and do one silly thing. Grin from ear to ear. And they had to make them smile for no good reason for 20 minutes. Now, when they're doing this, they had to grin so big that they created crow's feet on the side of the eyes. You know, that little set of lines you're smiling so big? Now, interesting, they keep their shoulders back while they're doing this and breathe fully. You go, dumb idea. But what happened? Not a single person was able to remain depressed, including a woman who claimed that she was depressed even while she slept, which is one heck of an accomplishment. And you know what's interesting? At the end of these 20 days, many of them had no need for medication anymore, and that's all they changed. Only one part of what we call their triad. Just the physical part. That's how powerful it is. See, if you rise up, if you move up, if you use your body in a totally different way, you're going to feel different. Emotion is created by motion. See, we have 80 muscles in our face. How many of them are you using consciously? Are you doing anything different with your body so you can feel different? Or do you do the same things so you feel the same things? You look at your list you have written down there. That list represents a few patterns that you do in your body on a regular basis and you don't even think about it. And whenever you do it, you're going to feel it. Some make you feel good when you do that. Some make you feel bad. By the way, when you think about a movement, to breathe, you got to move. To sing, you got to move. To speak. If I start talking like this, I'm moving organs in my body in a different way than if I start speaking more like this. By the way, what if you got this tape set and I said, "Hi, I'm Tony Robbins, and I'm going to share with you now how to have an extraordinary life during the next 7,000 hours of this program." You've got, turn this guy off quick. There's got to be some combination of energy there, and that energy comes because I'm not sitting in a chair here. I don't have a script in front of me. I'm looking at this microphone. I'm visualizing your face, and I'm trying to think what I can give you that I know will make a difference based on 25 years of experience. And I'm telling you, the number one thing is change the way you move. Change the way you use your body, and you'll change the way you feel now, instantly. I don't care how bad you felt if you change it. Now, if you just change it for a second, and you move your hands up for a moment, you make a little minor change, you'll get a minor change in feeling. But if you make a radical change, if you go, yes, I'm doing this now, I'm sick of this, I promise you, you're going to feel different if you go, I don't know what to do. I know this sounds so stupid, but it works. And you know what? The best study of life is what works, even if it's simple. It's nice to have things simple. Why do we have to make it so hard to feel good? Here's the second part of the triad. The second part is the pattern of focus and belief, and they relate to one another. See, whatever you focus on, you're going to feel whether it's true or not. Have you ever had an experience where somebody did something, or you thought somebody did something? Even better example. You heard, you thought, and you thought they did it to take advantage of you. And as you focused on that, you got angry or sad or hurt. And then later on, you found out you were dead wrong, that either they never did it, it wasn't true, or that wasn't their intent, and you felt bad about it, or you felt embarrassed. How can that be? Because whatever we focus on, we feel, whether it's true or not. Focus equals feeling, just like the way you move affects your feeling. See, right now, if I said to you, what are you juiced about in your life? What could you be excited about? If you really wanted to be excited in your life right now, what could you be excited about? Or what are you proud of? Or what could you be proud of if you wanted to be proud? Or who in your life do you really love? Who loves you? Think about it for a moment. Who do you really love? Who loves you? By the way, how does that feel when you focus on or you think about someone you love? See, whatever you focus on, you're going to feel. Focus equals reality to the individual, even though it's not reality in actuality. I'll say that again. Focus equals reality to the individual, even though it's not reality in actuality. That's a complicated way of saying whatever you focus on, you're going to feel, whether it's true or not, because your brain doesn't know the difference between something you vividly imagine, that's called focus on, or something you actually experience. It's very powerful. If you use this to your advantage, it means something very simple. How fast can you change how you feel? As fast as you change your focus. As fast as you change the way you move. See, right now, if you're focused on something that's really upsetting or something you're worried about or something you're fearful about, you're going to feel those feelings. If you focus on something you're really grateful for, you're going to feel a totally different set of feelings. See, you are in control and you can change your feelings in an instant. The problem is we don't believe we can change that fast. And the second problem is we have patterns of doing this, don't we? We tend to, on a regular basis, focus on what overwhelms us or focus on what we're upset with in our spouse or focus on why we failed in the past. And if you keep focusing on things where you didn't succeed, guess what? You're going to feel like a failure. And when you feel like a failure, you're not going to take action to make things better. You can't build on the past that doesn't work. But you can also focus on what you want, on what you want to create. You can focus on the solution. Hey, when you got a problem, everybody's got problems. But 95% of your time has got to be spent on the solution. 5% of the problem. Most of us spend all the time describing the problem more and more detail, and we wonder why we feel overwhelmed. Focus is the secret key to changing, and you can do it in an instant. One way to change your focus is to change the third thing, your language patterns. See, all day long we're thinking. What's thinking? All day long you're asking and answering questions with yourself. Should I do this? What does this mean? Why is this? Where is this going on? That's what initiates thinking, is a question. You know what the problem is? We have patterns of questions we ask that don't serve us. Some of us ask questions like, how come this always happens to me? Well, it doesn't always happen to you. But if you ask a lousy question like that on a regular basis, your brain goes, because you're an idiot. How come I can never lose weight? Well, you can lose weight, but ask a lousy question, ask and you shall what? You receive. How come I can never lose weight? Your brain says, because you're a pig. Come up with a better question, for God's sake. See, questions direct us. Questions are a form of language. And if you want to change your life, one of the things I have people discover is what questions you're asking. And also, what phrases do you say a lot? Because phrases hypnotize us. We have certain words by themselves that'll change the way you feel. If somebody says to you, hey, listen, I think you're mistaken about that. You might have one feeling. They go, you're wrong. You feel something very different just by the language. If somebody says you're lying, you have a whole different feeling, don't you? One word can change the way you feel when someone else speaks it to you. The words you select powerfully affect you. And I don't mean just being positive and doing the Stuart Smalley thing where you've got positive self-talk, right? And you say, I'm good enough, I'm strong enough, and by golly, people like me. No. I mean noticing the habit of the words and the emotions they create. And then third part of language is the phrases that you say with such emotional intensity that you start to believe them. We call those incantations. An incantation is like, if you remember studying mythology, a sorcerer would tell a prince over and over again a phrase over and over again with such intensity that he'd be hypnotized and he'd think that he was a frog. And so, of course, he was a frog. That's what he experienced. We experience whatever we focus on. We feel whatever we picture. We feel whatever we say to ourselves. We feel whatever we do with our bodies. Those are the three patterns. If you change those three patterns, any one of the three, you're going to change how you feel. If you change all three, you're going to radically change how you feel. If you change the pattern of how you use your body, if you change the pattern of what you focus on daily, which, by the way, I'm going to show you a technique for doing today that could change your life. Very simple. If you change the pattern of what you say to yourself with the emotional intensity you say it, you're going to change the pattern of how you feel. Now that means you could pick any feeling you want and say, if I want to feel that way, what do I do with my body? When I'm in that state, how do I move? How do I speak? What do I do? Let me try it. When I'm feeling that good, what do I focus on? What do I really focus on? And by the way, what does it mean to me when I focus on it? Because you can focus on something and one person looks at it and says, because that happened, that's why I can never be close to another man or woman in my life. That's why I can never trust again. And somebody else had the same experience. They go, because that happened, what? I've learned so much about myself. And because that happened, I appreciate the person I'm with now so much. You can't have a foreground without a background, right? That's the secret to life. See, one person believes their life is over because something's happened. They gave it that meaning. Somebody else says, God's challenging me. It's time to go to the next level. We have absolute choice. We have absolute control about how we feel. And whatever feelings we put in our lives on a regular basis will determine the quality of our lives. So you can have frustration, anger, upset, overwhelm, insecurity. You can be fearful. You can live in a state of guilt, worry, whatever. Or you can live in a place called passion, joy, thankfulness, gratefulness, connection, love, wonder. And if you create those emotions on a regular basis, are you going to have a different life? You bet you are. Okay, so how do we take these three understandings and make it so we don't have to think about it, but we actually, on a regular basis, condition ourselves to have the great emotions we want and get rid of the emotions you don't want? Well, first step is awareness. See, next time you start to feel like, I'm so frustrated, I'm so angry about this, notice what you're doing with your cheeks. What are you doing with your mouth? What happened to your breathing just now to do that? What's happening to your eyebrows? Are you tightening your fingers in your hands? Because we all have very specific things we do to get into our version of anger or frustration or tired or overwhelmed. Does that make sense? Just notice what's happening in your body. Say, okay, I'm not breathing. That's a clue. Let me start with a little change there. My muscle is so tight I can't even talk. That might be a clue why you're a little uptight. So loosen your jaw. Second thing, okay, what am I focusing on? I'm focusing on how, this isn't working. Now, to help you understand the belief part, ask yourself, in order to feel this way, what would I have to believe? In order to be frustrated, what would I have to believe? I have to believe that it should be better than it is, and it's not, and it's not working. Well, maybe it isn't working, but is that going to help you to focus on it isn't working? Let's focus on what we can do. Or if you say, I feel like it's hopeless because in order to feel hopeless, I have to believe that there's nothing I can do. Is that really true? Is there's nothing you can do? Or are you just caught up in a state? Are you just caught up in a pattern? See, if you ask yourself, what do I have to believe to feel this way? It'll help you to break that part of the triad because you'll start to say, yeah, that isn't really even true. All right, so that'll help you there. Third part of awareness is to say, okay, what am I saying to myself? Why do they do this? How come they always do these things? Why don't they ever listen? Well, I'm asking a lot of lousy questions because they may listen sometimes, but I'm saying they don't. I'm saying it with total intensity. Of course I'm going to feel bad. Let me change what I'm saying. Let me change what I'm asking. How can I turn this around? What do I need to focus on to make this work? What's the truth here? Maybe I can't control it all, but I can control what it means to me. What does this really mean? If you just have that awareness and you break your pattern, you can get out of a negative emotion in a moment. Then you can say, well, how do I want to feel? To feel like that, what would I have to do with my body? To feel like that, what would I have to focus on right now? What would I have to believe? I have to believe, I can turn anything around. I may not like it, but I can make it happen. It's just another challenge that God's given me to sculpt my muscles, right? Sculpt my soul. Throw it at me. God's the greatest trainer on earth, because a great trainer, when you think you got nothing left, what do? They go, give me 6 more. And you go, 6 more? I only have 1 more. But, they say, yes, you do. And sure enough, you got at least 3 more in you, and you develop real muscle. And now you're stronger. And what used to be hard now gets to be easy next time because you've been through it. That's what this is about. Now, here's what you can do that'll make this part of your life. All we're going to do is go after that thing we said was missing in our lives. Do you remember what it is after all this verbiage I've given you? Time with yourself. But we're going to structure that time so that we create a daily triad that puts us in a state of mind where things flow. Have you ever had that happen? It's like, yes, I know what to do. Of course. Oh, yeah, it's a challenge. Big deal. Bring it here. Let's handle it. No big deal. Come on. Don't worry. Have you been in those states where nothing can shake you? You can hope that you're going to pop into one of those states and get lucky. Or you can create it every morning before you start your day. So you start with a foundation that's so powerful that it affects you and everybody around you. You can make life beautiful. Life can be beautiful for you every day if you do the things he did with his body. If you focus on life the way he focused on it. If you use language like he used. He being the man in the movie. Or the man in real life who embodies it so much. See, that's a role model. If you sow the same seed, you'll reap the same rewards. But you got to schedule it. Because remember what I said? If you talk about it, it's a dream. If you envision it, it's possible. But if you schedule it, it's real. So here's what I'm going to ask you for. An invitation and a challenge. I want you to give yourself that missing time. And I want you ideally to give yourself an hour of power, I call it, at least 5 days a week. Now, what does that mean? It means for 1 hour, I'm going to walk you through 3 things to do for an hour that will absolutely connect you to yourself and will give you a level of focus and joy and happiness and strength to deal with not only the challenges, but to enjoy your life more. If you don't do it, you're going to be driven by technology, by demands, by people, by our kids. You know what? It's beautiful that you're willing to give to everybody else. But if you keep giving everyone and you don't fill yourself back up, there's nothing to give, and I know you know this is true. So here's what it looks like. And by the way, if you can't do an hour, then do 30 minutes to thrive. If it's not an hour of power, give yourself at least 30 minutes. There's always 30. And if you can't do that, at least do 15 minutes to fulfillment. So I'll describe this. So there's never a day you shouldn't do this. There's always 15 minutes. But if you can lock in that hour, it'll go. And I'll tell you before I tell you how it works, if you'll just do the 15 minutes, it'll grow to the 30. It'll grow to the hour because you'll get so reinforced in your life. So what does it look like? Here's what it is simply. At the end of the session, there's another tape or CD you can actually take with you on a walk. You can go and make this process happen, and I'll guide you through it in case you forget how this works, but it's pretty simple. It has 3 parts. Here's what you're going to do. The first step is that you want to make sure that the moment you wake up in the morning, there's no hesitancy to get up. So you start to train your body, which is training your mind. Remember, your body and mind are linked. Whatever you do with your body, it's going to affect your mind. You want to train your body to jump out of bed immediately with energy, without hesitancy, and to start moving. Because remember, emotion comes from motion. We've got to move. Now, ideally, you would exercise in the morning. There's a lot of reasons to do that because of all the times. And by the way, I'm a night person, so I understand if you go morning, well, I ain't jumping out of bed in the morning. I turn on around midnight or 1 in the morning, and sometimes I don't go to bed to 4 or 5. So what I'm talking about, you can adapt, but just hear me out. The ideal time to work out is in the morning, because if you exercise in the morning, you turn on your metabolism, and you have it for the whole day. If you don't exercise, you get no metabolism, and you just keep gaining fat, and your body loses its strength, and you lose muscle every single year, especially as you age. But if you can train yourself to do that in the morning as the first thing, even if you have to get up earlier, or go to bed slightly earlier, or just take 1 hour less sleep, or 30 minutes less sleep, or 15-minute less sleep, if you can do that in the morning, you turn on the metabolism, but you also turn on your emotions. Movement and breath are the first phase. So what you're going to do, have your shoes beside your bed, and if you've got somebody to do this with, it's even better. I mean, if you got your lover and the first thing you do is get up in the morning and you can spend time walking with them, that's great. But you get up and you physically move. You go for a walk. Anywhere. You get outside. You get out of the house, you move immediately. Now, walking doesn't sound very dynamic, and you may want to run, but you walk first to start warming up your body, warming up your metabolism. And as you're walking, there's a pattern of breathing that when you do it, it will stimulate your body to cleanse itself, and it'll start to move everything you need. And the ratio of breath, if you're inhaling 4 breaths in a row, so it's, and then you're exhaling 4 in a row. As you're doing this, you're actually going to be tapping fingers. You'll be doing this same pattern again and again. This pattern of breathing will alter your state. You will literally, after doing this for about 5 minutes, be going to feel radically different. Now, you're going to inhale through your nose, as you probably heard, and exhale out your mouth. And this is something called breath walking. There have been studies done on this at MIT, and it literally alters brain functioning, but you don't have to know the studies to be able to feel what it does in your system. So all you're going to do is for the first 5 minutes, enjoy yourself. Get up. You don't have to worry about, oh, I got to run right now, my back's sore. You just get up and you start to walk. You walk for about 5 minutes with this breathing pattern. Step 2, you get grateful and you begin to visualize. So in phase 2, what you're going to do now is you're going to cultivate the emotion of gratitude. What you're going to do very simply is, remember I said fear disappears when you're grateful. The minute you're grateful, you're rich. When you have everything in your life to be grateful for and you don't feel that emotion, you got nothing. You're poor. So this has to be a daily emotion. It's like the antidote to all the stress, the antidote to all the frustration. But you got to cultivate it, because if you go into a state of depression on a regular basis, pretty soon your body goes there automatically because it's conditioned, it's trained. It's like what we call anchoring it. By going into that physiology, by breathing, and by visualizing. So what you're going to do is you're going to focus on and ask yourself, what are all the things in my life I'm grateful for while you walk? So you're outdoors, you're moving, so your pattern of physiology makes you feel good. You got movement, you got emotion. Now, as you're moving, you think about everything you're grateful for. And I usually start with a circle. I start with myself right here, and I think about all the things I'm grateful to God for in my life. My health. I start to think immediately, okay, my family members, and I think about them, and I send love to them. I make this spiral of thought going out. And then I think about my close friends and my close business associates, and then all the people I get to serve through my work in the world. And I just expand it. You think of moments you're grateful for. You know, a moment that I had with my son where he shared something with me that just made me cry. It was so beautiful. You know, there are moments in your life. So what are we doing? We're moving and breathing. That's changing your physiology. We're being grateful. That's a focus. And so now you change your focus. And now what you focus on is everything that you really want in your life, but you focus on it from the state as if it's already been achieved. I honestly start just giving thanks for it as if it's done. I am so grateful that that business deal has come together the way it has. So what I do is I begin to see it as if it's already done. Because remember, your brain can't tell the difference between something you vividly imagine and something you actually experience. So I see it. I feel it. I think about it. I feel the emotion as if it's already achieved. The more you can program your body and your mind and your emotions that something's achieved, your brain can do things you're unaware of. And if you focus on what you want continuously, you'll move towards it. Whatever you focus on, you move towards. Most people are focused on what they're afraid of. So as an example, when somebody's out of control in a car, they immediately look at the wall they don't want to hit. And of course, as they look at it, they steer right into it. The same thing happens in life. Wherever you focus, that's where you go. Don't focus on what you fear. Focus on what you want and make it real. The more certain you are that what you want can happen, the easier it is for your brain to figure a way. When you say this is important, your brain starts noticing anything that'll get you to what's important. And if you believe it's already happened, You know enough about life that when you have that kind of certainty, your brain will find the way. Now you start focusing on today. What do you want to create today? You think about meetings you're going to have. What do you want to make that happen? Instead of going, oh, I got to go to this meeting, what do I want? Most people think about what they have to do. Think about what you want to do. Who do you want to turn on, excite, make happy? Who do you want to make laugh? What do you want to achieve there? What do you want to accomplish? See, the more you can see it in advance, you got to remember, everything that's in your outside world started in your inside world. Everything in my life, my kids, my businesses, this conversation with you started as something in my head, and now it's real. The same is true for you. You got to create in your head first the way you want it if you want it to show up in your life the way you want it. Most people create in their head what they don't want, and so, of course, they keep manifesting what they don't want. So even for this day now, focus on what do you want to create out of this day. Think about what's coming up. How do you want it to go? How do you want to feel? How could you respond? And just get yourself juiced about the day. So now what you need to do is incantations. So if you're walking, as you're walking, you can be doing this. You can even be doing it with the same breath you started with. Or you can be going, I love my life. I love my life. I love my life. You go, oh, that sounds so positive, thinky tone. But you know what? If you do it over and over again, you're going to be vibrating. I've done incantations my entire life. It's how I've conditioned myself. 25 years ago, when I first started speaking, I was 17 years old. I'd made some changes in my life really quickly, and I started sharing it. And I didn't have speaking skills, but I had a state. You know when you're in state and things just flow? It's just like having a conversation. You don't have to think about it. It comes out of you. But I made myself get in state because I was fearful. So I said, I got to focus on how to serve, not on am I going to do a good job. I need to focus on giving, not on how am I going to do. If you focus on how you're going to do, you're going to get worried. So I created an incantation, and I've done it for 25 years before I go on stage every single time. If anyone's been backstage, they'll see what I do. I make a big change in my body, take an explosive breath, and I do this thing I call a power move that stimulates my body so I'm at the strongest state I can be. Second thing I do is I do my incantation. And what I do is I say this. I say, I now command my subconscious mind to direct me in helping as many people as possible today to better their lives by giving me the strength, the emotion, the persuasion, the humor, the brevity, whatever it takes to show these people and get these people to change their life now. And I do it again and again and again. Now I can do it once today, and I'm there. Because I used to do this literally for 45 minutes driving someplace. I'm driving my old Volkswagen Bug, and I'm supposed to do this speech to share with people how they can do these things. Or I'm supposed to meet this person one-on-one. And I would literally chant this out loud. Now, why do you do it out loud? Because if you go in your head, that doesn't affect you. Speaking engages your physiology. And when you speak with certainty and intensity, it conditions you. So the bottom line is you do this while you walk. So if you're conscious about this, you can do it under your breath, like I said. You can do it in a breathing pattern. You can do something simplistic, like, every day and every way I'm getting stronger and stronger. As you're jogging, as you're walking, every day and every way I'm getting stronger and stronger. Some old phrase from an old book from years ago. Anything will work as long as you say it with intensity. Every day and every way I'm feeling happier and happier. Every day. And you say it again and again. And what you'll actually get is a rhythm. I'll tell you what incantations do in case this sounds stupid to you. Maybe it'll help. Have you ever made the fatal mistake of going to Disneyland and getting on a ride called It's a Small World After All? If you have, you know the power of incantations, because what's stuck in your head for the next 3 weeks? That song in 37 languages, right? Or if you hear a song and you get it in your head and you can't get it out, and it goes on and on and on. Well, this is a way to get the right idea in your head and condition it, but not just the idea, the feeling. So now what you need to do is exercise, ideally 20 minutes, no less than 15, 30 even better. And if you can do 45 minutes, that's wonderful. And that's how you get to the hour. And so at the end of this hour of power, you want to celebrate. You want to say, my God, I got myself to do this thing that set me up for victory. Now, you won't have to work at celebrating, I promise you. You'll feel so good, you'll be vibrating, especially if you did the incantations. Now, this process, you might say, well, I'm not going to run 5 times a week. You don't have to. You can just go on a walk. And you can do this process, this hour of power of focus, and you can spend 10 minutes on gratitude, 10 minutes on visualizing, 10 minutes on what you want to have happen today, and do it in 30 minutes. This is your freedom. But I can tell you, if you'll give yourself an hour, where 15 or 20 of those minutes are based on these 3 things: massive changes in your physiology that make you feel great, massive changes in your focus that make you focus specifically on gratitude and specifically on what you want to have happen and feeling like it's already been achieved, and then massive changes where you push your body to be stronger and you make some incantations, you say some phrases over and over, at least 5 or 10 minutes of it, you will have conditioned your mind, your body, your emotions, and your spirit will soar. And now you will deal with problems radically differently. There won't be problems, there'll be challenges for you. And more importantly, you'll be excited to connect with people. You'll be excited about your projects. You will affect people around you in a different way because you will have an extraordinary psychology. If you want an extraordinary body, it takes a ritual, doesn't it? A ritual of diet or a ritual of exercise. If you want an extraordinary emotion and spirit, it takes rituals. One of those that you might want to add to this hour of power is prayer. If you believe in prayer, this is it, and this is a form of it. Maybe the greatest prayer is not asking for things, but saying, thank you. Thank you, Lord. Getting in that place on a daily basis for no less than 15 minutes to fulfillment, and ideally the hour of power, will change your life more than anything else. And if you didn't listen to any other tape and you just did this, I can promise you, if you did it for 6 months, your life will never be the same. Because all the research shows that if you even exercise for 6 months, you'll exercise for the rest of your life because it becomes physically addictive to you. If you get away from it, you'll feel pulled to do it. All you got to do right now is give it a week or 10 days. Do this with me for 10 days, and I promise you, you're going to get some momentum. If you want to guarantee success, do it for 30. That's why I did personal power for 30 days, and that's why I gave you 7 days of personal power on top of the 7 days of Get the Edge. This tape is much longer than any other, and other than a workshop, because I really wanted to hopefully engage you. I don't know if I'll ever see you again. I don't know if you'll listen to another CD. But my goal was to do everything I could to get you to give yourself what you deserve and to tell you the 3 things that you got to take control of and to remind you of the fundamentals that your life is nothing but your emotions. If you get the right emotions, you'll work out. If you're determined, you'll work out. If you're determined, you can go on a diet, but most people are trying to go on a diet and they're not determined. You can change a state that fast, but you got to get the habit. Are you sold? I hope so, because the sale is for you. It's not for me. It's for you to create what you want long term. If you will do this, and you'll even do it 4 days a week, if you'll just get a habit that you'll commit to and not break, your pride will soar. Because when you just discipline yourself a tiny bit, and by the way, it doesn't feel like discipline, it feels like joy when you do it. But if you discipline yourself just a little bit, you get a positive habit you've consciously created, it spills over into all the areas of your life. And if you stay with me on this over these next 7 days, we're going to address each of those areas with the best tools I know of. So thank you for listening. And what I want you to do is tomorrow, or if you're crazy like me, you'll just grab the next tape or CD and go for a walk. Tomorrow I want you to go do this first thing in the morning. I want you to start out your day by doing this hour of power or this 30 minutes to thrive or these 15 minutes of fulfillment. Just do it. And by the way, if this sounds complex and I've overloaded you because it's been a long session, don't worry. I'll walk you through it fresh as we do it, but make sure you get started. The hardest part is the first step. The hardest part to get is momentum. The hardest part is get to the gym. So just do it, as they say in the Nike ads, and you'll get what you really want. So my friend, I plead with you. Give yourself this gift each day. I mean, this is really one of the most important decisions of your life. And I hope my crazy, outrageous approach pushed you in the right direction and didn't push you away. I hope somehow I found my way into your heart or your intellect or whatever part of you we've got to reach to push the button that launches your life to the next level, to the level it deserves to be. So this is the beginning of a brand new journey, and I'm really grateful that you've allowed me to be your coach in this first part of the process. I think we can make immense progress, so let's start taking real action. Let's not just talk a good game, you and I. Let's do it. Just get your butt out there, because once you get out there, you'll get out there again and again. You'll get that momentum. It'll take over, and the best of you will start showing up every day. And when the best of you shows up every day, you're going to start appreciating yourself, and so will everybody else. So today, look around you. Keep your eyes open for magic moments. They're all around. And be sure, if nothing else today, you live with passion today and every day. I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow.